Hi guys, Dahlia here, welcome to my channel. Towards the end of January I was staying at my mum's place for a week, and the thing that we like to do together is to scour op shops. Now that is Australian for thrift store or second-hand store. And the thing that we like to buy there are books. So she found one in Dandenong, Victoria that you can get a bag of books for $10 and the proceeds go to the Epilepsy Foundation. I've kind of been on a book buying ban, but of course when it's for charity I can't really say no. So $10 for as many books as you can shove into this bag. And it turned out to be quite a lot of books. So today I'm going to show you 44 of them, but there were more that I bought that aren't particularly going to be of interest here. So first of all, I'm going to show you guys all of the fiction books, and then I'll move on to non-fiction. And I will let you know when I'm going to move on to non-fiction. So if you guys are not interested in non-fiction, then you can just get out of the video. This is going to be a long video, let's get into it. This is the fiction side to the books. So I picked up The Wave by Morton Rue. I read this book in high school. Okay, so if you guys don't know what this book is about, it is about a teacher who wants to get control of his students. So he decides to set up an experiment based on the way that Hitler ran his Nazis and why the Nazis would do anything that Hitler said. So basically in history they're learning all about Hitler and the Nazis. So this teacher's like, right, let's try this out. He assigns people their titles or their labels and said, that's who you are. Basically, you are top ranking or you are lower ranking, and these are your duties. And the class just thinks it's a bit of fun, but then they start to do things on their own and they start to become more violent and more aggressive and really get into their roles. And it's a fascinating look into this sort of situation. The next two books I got are from the Inheritance trilogy. I think it's a trilogy. So, and that is Aragon and Eldest. I've had the third one on my shelves, this beast, on my shelves for God only knows how long, and it's quite an old book. I found it at an op shop as well, and I hadn't been able to find the first two books of the series, which is really frustrating. These are the covers. I have not read these and I actually do not know what they're about. All I've heard is that they are one of the best fantasy series that have been released. So I watched the movie for Gone Girl a few weeks ago now, and it was a fantastic movie. I was fascinated until the end. Normally with movies I get bored and I walk away. This one I could not. It was fantastic. The twist and turns just, it's incredible. The ending frustrated me, but I get why the author left the ending like that. So when I saw the book, even though it's in pretty dodgy condition, I had to pick it up. And of course, you know what, I probably paid about 10 cents for this. I'm pretty excited to meet it. Now if you guys don't know what this is about, this guy's wife goes missing, and they've kind of been a bit rocky, so he just thinks that she's run off and gone somewhere else. He goes to the police to try and sort it out. Everyone thinks that he has murdered her and that she's gone. They find blood smears that have been wiped up and bleached over in his kitchen floor. They find all sorts of troubles with the house and things knocked over and things missing, and all seems really suspicious and points the fingers at the husband. But was it the husband? And is she really dead? So I also found this book. This is Gem Signs by Stephanie Salter. I thought it sounded like a really interesting book. Basically it's about two types of people. There are the norms, who are just everyday people, and then there are the gems who have superpowers. And the human race is on the brink of extinction or a lot of troubles anyway, and it all revolves around basically taking down the freedom that the gems have, because the normal people want to have that freedom as well. So I thought that this sounded like a really fascinating read, and I'm trying to get into more kind of sci-fi stuff, so I thought, yes, well, let's give it a go. So as a kid I was obsessed with dinosaurs. I wanted to be a paleontologist. So the first time that I watched Jurassic Park, I went off my nut. I thought it was the coolest thing that had ever existed. And then I found out that it was based on a book series. This is the second in the Jurassic Park trilogy, I believe, and I don't have the first one unfortunately, but this is going to encourage me to buy the first one, hopefully. So I've seen Josephine Cox around quite a bit. I believe that I don't have any of her novels. I'm not 100% sure. I do have books packed away, so I might. This one is actually kind of vague. It's about this guy who has run away. Basically his family is dead or they're gone, and so he's run away, but he ends up coming back to the town that he lived in to reunite with the people that he left behind, and I think kind of figure out who he is and what happened to his family. This is Apartment 255 by Bunty Avison. I've never actually heard of this author, but this sounds like a really good book. Basically, it's about best friends, and one ends up just having this better life than the other one. This other one gets quite jealous of that, and so she decides to, basically she starts tormenting them. At first it's just kind of stalking them, and then stalking her friend and her boyfriend, and then it becomes torment. So I think this is going to be a really good read. Michael Robotham is another fiction crime author, and this book is The Suspect. So this looks like a really kind of a twisted, more crime read. Basically it's about this guy who, his life has gone pretty well, you know, he's got an ordinary life, and then he's called in to investigate the brutal murder of this woman, and he finds out that she is his colleague. And so I don't know anything more about the book apart from the fact that after that his life starts unraveling. This is a Kathy Reichs book. This is Deja Dead. Basically Dr. Temperance Brennan investigates homicides, and she goes about unraveling the mysterious deaths around a lot of different people, and that's what these book series are based on. They're based around her exploits and what she does, and Kathy Reichs just has this brilliant way of writing that generally I'm not interested in. Say she uses a lot of dialogue tags and generally a lot of dialogue, but for some reason I just really love her writing. It's compelling. I started reading the book at my mum's from the middle of the book where my mum had actually gotten up to, and I was stuck in the book. I didn't want to go to bed. So it must be a good sign. So I'm really excited to read this book. Tara Moss is another crime author, fiction crime author. This one is Fetish. Basically it is about this model whose friend gets brutally murdered. So in order to run away or just get away from all this stuff that has happened, she moves to Australia. While trying to deal with the modelling word, she enlists the help of a detective agency to try and find the killer of her best friend. Unfortunately, things get a bit hairy and she doesn't know who to trust. So this one sounds quite intense, and I know that she's a very popular author, so I'm very excited to read this one as well as the Kathy Reichs book. This is A Stranger House by Reginald Hill, and again, like the other ones, this is also a very famous author that I have seen a lot of. Unfortunately, the blurb to this book is very vague. It doesn't really explain much about the story. There's a lot of descriptions saying that there are a lot of twists and turns in the book, but it seems to be another kind of clash between the supernatural and the natural world, and might be a little bit of crime in there as well, so I'm very excited about it. Other than that, it has a really nice cover, so I couldn't walk past it. This is The Lamplighter by Anthony O'Neill. I first saw the cover of this, and that's what made me actually pick the book up to read what it was about, because we all judge books by the covers. It's what happens. But it's based in Scotland, 1886, and basically putting a crime sort of situation back in the past. And the person that everyone is looking for as the murderer is this lamplighter. So I feel like it's gonna be a bit Jack the Ripper-esque, and it's gonna be very exciting and fast-paced. That's what I'm hoping for. It says that it is gripping, and it looks like it's very exciting, but I'll let you guys know how it goes. This is another Kathy Reichs book. This is 206 Bones. Again, this is about Dr. Temperance Brennan and her search into a homicide. However, in this book, she gets blamed for the mishandling of some evidence of a body. So basically, she's got to unravel who put out this false claim about her and why they've done that and what is going on in the background that this is trying to distract her from. So this is The False Virgin by a few people down the bottom here. A historical mystery by the medieval murderers. So my mum actually picked this up thinking that it was non-fiction, because she generally doesn't read fiction unless it's Stephen King or Dean Koontz. So she picked it up thinking, yes, this looks like it's going to be really good. And as soon as she read the back of it, she's immediately handed it to me and pulled a face. And I was like, you know, well, what's wrong? And she's like, it's fiction. Okay, well, I'll have it then. So I think this is about a nun who is murdered. However, there are butterflies resting on her corpse, and that is seen to be a sign from God that she should receive sainthood. It says here, it is not long before Saint Bernwyn comes to be regarded as the patron saint of those suffering from disease. So many people flock to her shrines from all over the world. So basically, because of what happens after people go to see her. Apparently leaves a trail of like sickness and whatnot in the wake. A poet decides to recreate the tale of her sainthood because he questions whether or not she was actually a saint. So I'm really glad it turned to be fiction because now it's mine. Okay, so this is pretty exciting because it takes me back to my childhood like crazy. This is actually one that my mum found for me. It is Smuggler Pot and Cuddle Pie. I don't know if you guys know this book. There are heaps of illustrations in it by May Gibbs, and they are just too cute. It's about these little babies that, you know, they have these little acorn tops as hats, and they're very adorable. I'm very excited to have another copy of it, and I will be rereading it. So I don't think that a book haul would be complete without finding a copy of The Godfather. Every op shop that I go to, there is a copy of The Godfather. I swear to God that I have about 3 or 4 of them now. I have to stop getting them. If you have not watched the movie, which if you don't want to read the books, you don't think that you'd be interested in the Italian mafia, then I highly recommend watching the movies at least because they are so damn good. Basically, it's about Don Corleone's, or the Corleone family, the mafia, having their club, or whatever you want to call it, kind of infiltrated and a little bit shaken up because of the position in the American mafia system. So it is about the tale of how they retaliate to this and just how they run their business. So I know that I'm a little bit late to this, and I've had so many people say, what are you doing? Watch it or read it. Okay, so I have watched Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. So you guys can't say anything. And I now have the book. I will read it. I will eventually get around to reading this series. If you don't know what it's basically about this kid who has kind of a little bit of a troubled home life. He gets attacked one day by this demon, and then slowly begins to unfold that he's actually Poseidon's son and he can control water. So Poseidon, the Greek god, and he finds out that he can control water and water can heal him, and basically he's a demigod. He goes to this camp and it's really freaking awesome, and there's so many fantastical creatures. His mentor, basically, I think he's kind of a mentor, it sounds that way from the movie, is a centaur, and he's got goat legs, and it is so cool. So I will be reading it, guys, I promise. The next one is Theban Plays by Sophocles. This is a classic, like the Odyssey and those sorts of books, but I tend to really love them. I love the drama, I love the epicness of the time that these were produced in, so this is going to be a very cool one. I actually don't know much about the Theban Plays or much of the author at all. So on my shelves I have The Hobbit and The Fellowship of the Ring by Tolkien, and now I have The Two Towers. I was trying to find all the books, but I could only find this one, so I am missing the 3rd book in this trilogy, but that's okay because I can just find it another day. But this is a nice copy. There is a little bit of damage on it, but you expect that one is second hand. I have heard that the books are far better, especially The Hobbit, so I'm kind of excited to get into reading them rather than watching them, but I hope I don't hate the movies from it. If you have read the books and watched the movies, what did you think? And the last of the fiction books in my haul is Tomorrow When the War Began by John Marsden. This book has been around obviously for quite some time now, and I was supposed to get it upon release, but other books ended up getting in the way, and so I bought them instead. So I do finally have it now, and it sounds like something that is really going to interest me because I do like the whole apocalyptic sort of ideals in books. I really love them, especially if they've got dystopian feel about them, so excited for this book as well. Now for the non-fiction books. So if you guys do not like non-fiction, then thank you for sticking around. The links for all my other platforms are below in the description bar. Let me know what you thought of my haul and if you've got the same books, and I'll see you for my next video. Okay, so we're going to start off with a bit of a controversial one. This one is A Fellow No More by Tracy Fellows. Play on words there. So this is about a man who went through a gender reassignment surgery and became a woman, and basically it is just his tale about his whole transition, her whole transition now. It looks like a very fascinating book. My mom was actually the one that picked this up for me, so I am fascinated to read this book and just see what he had to go through to become Tracy. The next book my mum had a double of, so she's obsessed with true crime just like me, and this one is The Coroner, Investigating Sudden Death. I am hugely fascinated in true crime. This is about Australia's notorious murders, and the guy who wrote this investigated the death of Michael Hutchence, who was lead singer of NXS. So I'm kind of interested to see what he has to say about the whole thing of death in Australia, because we've had some brutal murderers. Next one is another Australian true crime, and that is Australia's 13 Most Intriguing True Murders by Liam Houlihan, and that is Badlands. So basically this explains itself and what it is about. Again, I'm very excited to get to this one. This one's a little bit different. This is The Ghost Guide to Australia by Richard Davis. Me and my mum are also nuts, absolute nuts about ghosts in Australia. Me and my partner once lived in a haunted asylum, which was very cool with the caretakers there. Loved every minute of it, to be honest, and so this book is just going to be a great accompaniment for when we go travelling around Australia. So I have a few favourite serial killers, and one of those is Jack the Ripper. Obviously it fascinates me that it was never found out who he was, and this one is an investigation into prisoner 1167, who could have been the actual Jack the Ripper. I read a fair bit amount of Jack the Ripper stuff, and I wonder if this is going to present any new insightful information. Okay, so this is Lottie, the love affair with a man of God and the cruel death that shocked Australia. This is a novel based on actual true events, and which I don't know how I feel about that, because I feel like it's going to sway a lot of people's opinions about this sort of stuff, but I find a lot of cult stuff fascinating, and just all what people under the Christian banner like to call under God, and it's actually a cult, and just what they do and how people follow them. So this is going to be another interesting read. My mum is obsessed with shipwrecks and the Titanic, so she picked up The Fatal Shore for me, which is about shipwrecks all over Australia. I'm not as interested in shipwrecks as she is, but I think it is going to be a fascinating read, although it is a big hardcover book, so I don't know how long it'll take me to actually get to this book. This is Someone Else's Daughter, The Life and Death of Anita Kobe by Julia Shepherd. This was a tale about a girl who was brutally murdered in Australia, and actually just what happened and who it was that killed her, and looking into all of the evidence presented about the case. My mum found this one for me, which was actually really awesome. It is A War in Worlds, the First World War in Diaries and Letters. Now, as much as I am fascinated by the Second World War, the First World War in Britain especially, the home front in Britain, really fascinates me because the way the people had to live. So that's going to be a bigger insight into the information that I already have established about the world that was Britain during that time. So this hardback without a cover is Voices from the Home Front by Felicity Goodall. And again, yes, it is another war book, of course, because I don't really collect much else in the non-fiction range. Although it doesn't say, I have a feeling that it might also be, again, based on the Brits and in the Second World War. This one is a giant book on the First World War. So I have a lot of books on the Second World War. It is ridiculous. I have probably more than I should have. So I need a few more on the First World War, and well, here we go. This is more of a pictorial sort of book, informative book, but it has a lot of photos from the war effort and everything that went along with the First World War. So, and again, another fascinating read. This one is a bit different. It is another true crime one, but it is the untold story of Britain's biggest cash robbery and the people who almost got away with it. So this is kind of a different feel to true crime, but again, just as fascinating. I do have a couple of other books that are based on the exploits of bank robbers in Britain, and I think there's one in America. Not 100% sure, but this one's just going to be a great additive to my list. This is Elixirs of Life by Mrs. C.F. Lyle, and it is basically just a book of herbs and spices that are good to promote health and well-being in ourselves. The next biggest non-fiction collection that I have is history, mostly revolving around ancient Egypt. This one's just a nice little quick book. It's The Secrets of the Sphinx. This one is In the Minds of Murderers, the inside story of criminal profiling. This one again is another fascinating one. Of course, you can see Charles Manson standing right there before he carved the swastika into his forehead. and I think that is going to be a very insightful read, maybe one that might give me a little bit of a scare, so we'll see how I go. Of course, I can't stay away from the World War II books, so here's another one. This one is on land, sea and air battles between the years of 39 and 45. It's going to be another fascinating one because I don't know much about the air battles. I do know about the land and sea battles, but we'll see how I go, we'll see what I think. So my mum has books 1 and 2 of the Reader's Digest Crime Casebook, which is true life stories from the world's favourite magazine. She had books 1 and 2 already, she had book 2 already, and then when we went out to look for more books, she bought them again, so she gave me this one. I do need to get number 1, but I feel like they're not going to carry on from one to the other. This one is possibly the best non-fiction find of the day, and that is the Australian War Diary, which is Australian Armed Forces in a Changing World, 1870 to 210. Basically outlines in little details the years and what happened during that time in Australia, whether it was the changing of the rights for Aboriginals and ownership of land, or for women voting, or anything to do with war as well, and changing of prime ministers. So this is a very fantastic read. I already read half of it because I really enjoyed it. And finally, the last book that actually my partner picked out for me is Reader's Digest Word Power Dictionaries. So this is basically just all different words, what they are, what they mean, how to use them, an editor's dream guidebook, in other words. And it is this big and it is that big, so it is full of information, and holy cow, it is full of words. So it is like a massive version of an in-depth dictionary. So that concludes this 44 book haul. I cannot believe that I actually got through it, and I know this video is going to be long and that frustrates me, but you know what? They're books, and you guys like seeing books. I like seeing books. I love seeing big hauls, and I figured you guys will want to see the same thing, even though there are non-fiction and fiction books. So if you have any questions or want me to cover a specific topic, please drop a comment below. If you want to follow my journey on any other platform, see the description bar. All the links will be listed there for my Tumblr, for my Facebook, Twitter, both Instagrams, Pinterest and my website. I also post writerly videos on Thursdays, so remember to subscribe and hit that little notification bell if you want to see more of my videos and be notified when I post them. Thank you for watching today. I'll see you next Thursday. Bye!